The cold metal walls of the mining station pressed against Zara's back as she held her daughter close. Nira's small body felt too warm against her chest, and her breathing came in short, painful gasps. The little girl's blue skin had lost its natural glow, turning pale and gray around the edges. "Mama, it hurts," Nira whispered, her voice barely audible above the constant hum of the station's machinery. Zara closed her eyes and fought back tears. She had been fighting them for weeks now, ever since the doctor had given her the news. Cellular degeneration syndrome. The word still echoed in her mind like a death sentence. Without treatment, her daughter would be dead within 2 months. With treatment, Nira could live a full and healthy life. The problem was simple. The treatment cost more money than Zara had ever seen in her entire life. She looked around their tiny shelter, barely large enough for 2 people to lie down. The walls were thin aluminum sheets that did nothing to block the noise from the corridors outside. Other families lived in similar boxes, all of them refugees from the Villani homeworld that had been strip-mined to death by corporate greed. Zara had tried everything. She had begged the human administrators for help, but they only gave her the same cold response. No money, no treatment. She had tried to get work in the safer parts of the station, but those jobs went to humans or the stronger alien species. The only work available to Villani women was in the dangerous radiation zones, and even that barely paid enough for food. "I have to do something," she whispered to herself, stroking Nira's thin hair. The idea had been growing in her mind for days, even though it made her sick to think about it. There was one way to get the money quickly. One terrible, desperate way. She could sell herself. Indentured servitude was legal on the frontier stations. A person could sell their freedom for a set period of time in exchange for immediate payment. The buyer owned them completely during that time. They could be worked to death, abused, or worse. But the money would be paid up front. Zara had heard the stories. She knew what happened to Villani women who sold themselves. Their blue skin and radiation resistance made them valuable for the most dangerous jobs. Most didn't survive their contracts. But if she died, at least Nira would live. The next morning, Zara made her way to the labor exchange office. The hallways of Kepler 7 station were crowded with beings from dozens of different worlds. Humans in clean uniforms walked past ragged aliens without a second glance. The smell of recycled air and industrial chemicals burned her nose. The labor exchange was a large room filled with desperate people. Some were selling their labor for a few days or weeks. Others, like Zara, were there to sell everything. A bored human clerk took her information and assigned her a number. "Auction starts in 2 hours," the clerk said without looking up. "Stand, in line with the others." Zara found herself in a group of about 20 beings, all there to sell themselves into servitude. Most were male aliens who would go to the mining operations or construction crews. She was one of only 3 females, and the only Villani. A large Crexan stood nearby, his rocky skin scarred from years of hard labor. He looked at Zara with sad eyes. "You sure about this, little one?" he asked in broken common language. "Villani females. They don't usually survive long enough to buy their freedom back." Zara nodded. "My daughter needs medicine. This is the only way." The Crexan shook his massive head. "The galaxy is a cruel place." When the auction began, Zara watched the others go first. The Crexan sold for a decent price to a mining company. A young human man went to a farming operation. One by one, her fellow desperate souls were purchased and led away. Then it was her turn. "Next up, we have a Villani female, age 26, the auctioneer announced. "Healthy, intelligent, radiation-resistant, perfect for hazardous work environments. Contract period is 5 years. Bidding starts at 5,000 credits." Zara stood on the platform, trying not to shake. She kept her eyes focused on the back wall, not wanting to see the faces of the beings who might buy her. The bidding started slowly, but picked up as buyers realized her value. 7,000 from the Bexnon Mining Consortium, the auctioneer called out. 8,000 from Planetary Construction. 10,000 from Crexan Heavy Industries. Zara's heart sank. She recognized these companies. They were known to work their slaves to death in the most dangerous conditions possible. But the money they were offering would be enough to save Nira. 15,000 from HFY Industries, the auctioneer shouted. Do I hear 16? The room fell silent. 15,000 was more than most indentured servants brought, even for 5-year contracts. It seemed like the bidding was over. 15,000 going once, 20,000. The voice came from the back of the room. It was quiet, almost gentle, completely different from the harsh voices of the corporate buyers. Zara couldn't help but turn to look. A human man stepped forward from the shadows. He was maybe 40 years, old with brown hair and kind eyes set in a weathered face. His clothes were simple but clean, a pilot's jacket and work pants. He didn't look like the corporate buyers or the rough station bosses. He looked ordinary. 20,000 from the gentleman in the back, the auctioneer said, clearly surprised. Do I hear 21? The other buyers looked at each other, confused. 20,000 was far more than any Villani was worth, even for hazardous work. The HFY Industries representative shook his head and sat down. 20,000 going once, going twice, sold to the human gentleman. Zara felt her legs go weak. She had been sold. For the next 5 years, this stranger owned her completely. She thought of Nira back in their tiny shelter, probably wondering where her mother had gone. The human approached the platform as the paperwork was completed. Up close, Zara could see scars on his hands and face. Old scars, probably from some kind of military service. But his eyes were still kind, even gentle. My name is Jake Martinez, he said simply. I'm a cargo pilot. Zara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The transaction was completed quickly. Jake paid the full amount in advance and Zara's contract was transferred to him. She was now his property until the 5 years were up. Do you have belongings to collect? Jake asked as they left the auction house. My daughter, Zara whispered. I need to say goodbye. Jake stopped walking. Where is she? In our shelter. She's sick. That's why Zara's voice broke. She couldn't finish the sentence. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Show me. They walked through the station's cramped corridors to the refugee section. Zara's hands shook as she opened the door to their tiny shelter. Nira was lying on their shared bed, her small face pale and drawn. Mama? Nira's voice was weak. Where did you go? I'm here, baby, Zara said, kneeling beside the bed. She looked up at Jake, expecting him to be impatient to leave. Instead, he was studying Nira with a professional eye. How long has she been sick? Jake asked. 3 weeks. The doctor said it's cellular degeneration syndrome. She needs treatment, but we don't have the money. Jake knelt down beside the bed and gently touched Nira's forehead. I'm a medic, he said quietly. Former military. I know this condition. He looked at Zara, and something in his expression made her heart skip. Pack your things, both of you. We're going to get her the treatment she needs. Zara stared at him in shock. I don't understand. Jake stood up and looked out the small window, at the endless stars beyond the station. I bought your contract to help you save your daughter. The treatment she needs is available in human space. We leave in 1 hour. For the first time in weeks, Zara felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Zara had never been inside a human spaceship before. As Jake led her and Nira through the airlock of the New Horizon, she braced herself for cramped quarters and harsh conditions. Instead, she found herself in a clean, well-maintained corridor, with soft lighting and the gentle hum of efficient life support systems. Your quarters are this way, Jake said, carrying Nira carefully in his arms. The little girl had fallen asleep during the walk from their old shelter, exhausted by the simple effort of moving. Zara followed him down the corridor, her bare feet silent on the metal floor. She expected to be shown to some kind of storage, compartment or utility closet. Slaves didn't get comfortable accommodations. But Jake stopped at a door marked Guest Quarters and pressed his palm to the lock. The door slid open to reveal a small, but comfortable room with 2 beds, a desk, and even a small viewing port. It was larger than the shelter she and Nira had shared on the station and infinitely cleaner. "This is for us?" Zara asked, unable to hide her surprise. Jake nodded as he gently placed Nira on one of the beds. "The bathroom is through that door. There's a food synthesizer in the wall unit, and the environmental controls are here." He showed her a simple panel with buttons for temperature, lighting, and air circulation. Zara stared at him. "I don't understand. What do you want me to do?" Jake looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I'm your property now. You paid 20,000 credits for me. What work do you expect me to do? What are your orders?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. He sat down in the room's single chair and looked at his hands. "I don't have any orders for you. You're free to move around the ship. Help with basic maintenance if you want to, but it's not required." "That's impossible." Zara's voice was sharp with disbelief. "No one pays 20,000 credits for nothing. What do you really want from me?" Jake looked up at her, and she saw something in his eyes that she didn't expect. Pain. Old pain, carefully hidden, but still there. "I heard you talking to the other people in line before the auction," he said quietly. "You mentioned your daughter's condition. I'm a medic. I know what cellular degeneration syndrome looks like, and I know the treatments that are available in human space." He stood up and walked to the viewing port, looking out at the stars. "I didn't buy your contract for labor. I bought it to help you get proper medical care for your daughter." Zara felt her legs go weak. She sat down heavily on the edge of Nira's. "Ferris, why?" "Because someone needs to help," Jake said simply. "That's not a reason. You don't know us. We're aliens to you. Why would you spend so much money on strangers?" Jake turned away from the window. His face was carefully neutral, but Zara could see the tension in his shoulders. "I lost my family 5 years ago," he said. "Raiders attacked the colony where we lived. I was away on a supply run. When I got back..." He stopped and took a deep breath. "My wife and son were dead. I was a medic, but I couldn't save the people who mattered most to me." Zara stared at him. "I'm sorry. Since then, I've been running cargo routes on the frontier, staying busy, staying away from anything that might remind me of what I lost. But when I saw you at that auction, when I heard you talking about your daughter..." He shrugged. "Maybe it's time I did something useful with my life again." Zara didn't know what to say. In her experience, kindness always came with a price. There was always something expected in return, but Jake seemed genuine, and that scared her more than any cruel master would have. "I don't believe you," she said finally. Jake nodded. "That's understandable. You've probably learned not to trust apparent kindness. I don't blame you for being suspicious. So what happens now?" "Now, we travel to New Angeles. It's a human colony world with excellent medical facilities. The journey will take about 3 weeks. Once we arrive, I'll get Nira the treatment she needs. And then you'll be free to make your own choices." Zara shook her head. "You're lying. People don't do things like this." Jake walked over to a small cabinet and pulled out a medical kit. "Let me examine your daughter. I can't cure her condition with what I have here, but I can make her more comfortable for the journey." He knelt beside Nira's bed and gently took the little girl's pulse. His touch was careful and professional. Nira stirred and opened her eyes. "Mama," she whispered. "I'm here, baby," Zara said, taking her daughter's hand. Nira looked at Jake with wide, curious eyes. "Who are you?" "My name is Jake," he said with a gentle smile. "I'm a doctor. I'm going to help you feel better. Are you going to hurt me?" "No," Jake said firmly. "I'm going to give you some medicine that will help you sleep without pain, and then we're going to take a trip to a place where other doctors can make you completely well." Nira looked at her mother. "Is it true, Mama?" Zara met Jake's eyes. She still didn't trust him completely, but she could see that he meant what he said about helping Nira. "Yes, baby, it's true." Jake prepared an injection from his medical kit. "This will help with the pain and make it easier for her to breathe," he explained to Zara. "It's not a cure, but it will help. He gave Nira the injection with practiced skill, and within minutes the little girl's breathing became easier. Color began to return to her pale cheeks. "Better?" Jake asked. Nira nodded and smiled. It was the first real smile Zara had seen from her daughter in weeks. Over the next few hours, Jake showed Zara around the ship. The New Horizon was a medium-sized cargo vessel designed for long-range hauling. It had living quarters for a crew of 4, though Jake operated it alone. The cargo bay was mostly empty, containing only a few containers of trade goods. "Don't you get lonely traveling by yourself?" Zara asked as they walked through the engine room. Jake shrugged. "I prefer it that way, or I did, until now." He showed her how to operate the food synthesizer and the ship's communication system. He explained the basic safety procedures and gave her access codes for all the non-essential systems. "Why are you telling me all this?" Zara asked. "Because this is your home for the next 3 weeks. You should know how everything works." That evening, Jake prepared dinner for all 3 of them. He had programmed the food synthesizer with several Villani recipes, somehow knowing that familiar food would help Nira feel better. As they ate together in the ship's small galley, Nira chattered happily about the stars visible through the viewing ports. The medicine had taken away her pain, and for the first time in weeks, she seemed like a normal, healthy child. "Jake," Nira said suddenly, "are you going to be my new daddy?" Zara nearly choked on her food. "Nira," Jake looked embarrassed but not angry. "I'm just someone who wants to help you and your mama," he said gently. "But you're nice," Nira insisted. "And Mama likes you, I can tell." Zara felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Nira, that's enough." Later, after Nira had fallen asleep, Zara found Jake in the ship's small observation lounge. He was sitting in front of a large viewing port, looking out at the stars. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For the medicine. For the food. For treating us like people instead of property." Jake was quiet for a moment. "You are people. That's not something you need to thank me for recognizing." Zara sat down in the chair across from him. "I still don't understand why you're doing this." "Maybe I don't completely understand it myself," Jake admitted. "But when I saw you at that auction, when I saw how much you love your daughter, it reminded me of something I'd forgotten." "What's that?" "That there's still good in the galaxy, still people worth helping, still reasons to hope." Zara studied his face in the starlight. For the first time since leaving the station, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this human really was as kind as he seemed. The first week aboard the New Horizon passed quietly. Jake kept his word about giving Zara and Nira freedom to move around the ship. Zara spent most of her time caring for Nira, who was getting stronger each day thanks to Jake's medicine. But she also found herself watching Jake carefully, trying to understand this strange human who had turned her world upside down. Jake worked alone most of the time, checking the ship's systems and planning their route to New Angeles. He was quiet and methodical, moving through his daily routines with the precision of someone who had been alone for a long time. But whenever Nira was awake, he would stop what he was doing to talk with her or answer her endless questions about the ship. "Why do the stars look different colors?" Nira asked one morning as they sat together in the observation lounge. "Because they're different temperatures," Jake explained patiently. "Hot stars burn blue or white, while cooler stars burn red or orange. And some of what you see isn't starlight at all, but light from gas clouds or other ships." Nira pressed her small face against the viewing port. "It's so beautiful. Will I be able to see Earth from the hospital?" "Earth is very far from New Angeles," Jake said. "But maybe someday we can visit there together." Zara looked up from her reading tablet. The casual way Jake said "we" made something warm flutter in her chest. He was already including them in his future plans, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. One afternoon, while Nira was taking a nap, Zara found Jake working in the engine room. He was checking the power couplings, his hands moving with the confidence of someone who knew every bolt and wire in his ship. "Can I help?" She asked. Jake looked surprised. "You don't have to. I told you there's no required work." "I know, but I want to help. I don't like feeling useless." Jake nodded slowly. All right, can you hand me that scanner? Zara had always been good with technology. The Villani were natural engineers and she had worked on mining equipment before. Nira was born. She quickly learned the basic systems of the ship and proved to be a capable assistant. You're very good at this, Jake said as she successfully repaired a faulty sensor array. My people are good with machines, Zara replied. We have to be. Our homeworld was so damaged that everything needed constant repair. Jake stopped working and looked at her. What happened to your homeworld? Zara was quiet for a moment. She had never talked about this with a human before. Mining companies. They came when I was a child, promising jobs and prosperity. They strip-mined everything of value and left when there was nothing left to take. Most of my people died when the ecosystem collapsed. I'm sorry, Jake said quietly. That should never have happened. It happens all the time on frontier worlds. No one cares about the people who live there, as long as the profits keep coming. Jake was thoughtful as they finished their work. That evening, he shared more of his own story. He told her about his time as a military medic, about the worlds he had seen and the people he had tried to save. I joined the military because I wanted to help people, he said as they sat together after dinner, but I learned that sometimes the people giving the orders care more about resources than lives. Is that why you left? Partly. But mostly I left because I lost my family, and I couldn't bear to be around other families anymore. It hurt too. Much. Their conversations continued over the following days. Jake learned about Villani culture and traditions, while Zara learned about human customs and history. They discovered they had more in common than either had expected. Both had lost their homes. Both had seen the worst that the galaxy had to offer, but both still believed that good people existed, even if they were sometimes hard to find. On their 10th day in space, the ship's alarm system suddenly activated. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors, and an automated voice announced, "Warning, hostile vessels approaching." Jake ran to the bridge with Zara close behind him. The sensor display showed 3 small ships moving fast toward them. Their weapon signatures identified them as pirates. They must have picked us up on long-range scanners, Jake muttered as he began evasive maneuvers. Pirates always target lone cargo ships. What do we do? Zara asked. Pray they don't have military-grade weapons, Jake replied grimly. The pirate. Ships opened fire as soon as they came within range. The new horizon shook under the impact of energy blasts. Jake's hands flew over the controls, trying to keep them ahead of their attackers. Our shields are holding, but not for long, he said. And we can't outrun them, they're too fast. Zara looked at the tactical display, her mind racing. She had an idea, but it was dangerous. Jake, I need you to trust me, she said. What? My people have natural electromagnetic abilities. If I can get close enough to their ships, I might be able to disable their weapons. Jake stared at her. That's too dangerous. If something goes wrong, if we don't try something, we're all dead anyway. Another blast shook the ship, stronger than before. The lights flickered. Shields down to 30%, the computer announced. Jake made his decision. What do you need me to do? Get me to the cargo bay, and when I tell you to, cut all power to the ship's hull plating. They ran through the corridors as the ship continued to shake under enemy fire. In the cargo bay, Zara found what she was, looking for a maintenance port that connected directly to the ship's outer hull. She placed her hands on the metal surface and closed her eyes. The electromagnetic fields around the ship became visible to her senses, like colored lights dancing in her mind. She could feel the pirate ships nearby, their energy signatures bright and hostile. Now, Jake, cut the hull power. Jake hesitated for a moment, then followed her instructions. The ship's hull went dark, no longer protected by its electromagnetic shielding. Zara reached out with her abilities, extending her consciousness beyond the ship. She found the nearest pirate vessel and felt for its weapon systems. The technology was crude but effective, energy cannons powered by simple fusion reactors. She struck. The electromagnetic pulse that flowed from her mind through the ship's hull was invisible to human eyes, but it hit the pirate vessel like a hammer. Every electronic system on the ship shut down instantly. The engines went dead, the weapons stopped firing, and even the life support systems flickered. The other two pirate ships stopped their attack, confused by what had happened to their companion. That gave Zara the chance to target them as well. One by one, she reached out and disabled their ships, leaving them floating helpless in space. When it was over, Zara collapsed to the cargo bay floor. Using her abilities so extensively had drained her completely. Jake rushed to her side. "Are you all right?" "I'll be fine," she whispered. "Just tired." Jake helped her to her feet, his eyes full of amazement and respect. "That was incredible. I've never seen anything like it." "My people don't usually show our abilities to outsiders," Zara said. "We learned long ago that it makes other species nervous." "It doesn't make me nervous. It makes me grateful." Later, as they continued their journey toward New Angeles, Jake brought up what had happened. "Why did you do it?" he asked. "You could have been killed trying to save us." "Because this is my home now," Zara said simply. "You and Nira are my family. I protect my family." Jake was quiet for a long moment. "I haven't had a family for a long time. You have one now if you want it." That night, Jake sat with Nira as she fell asleep, reading her stories from an old human children's book. Zara watched from the doorway, seeing how gentle he was with her daughter. The little girl had started calling him Jake Papa when she thought her mother wasn't listening. "Mama," Nira whispered as Zara tucked her into bed. "I like it here. I like Jake Papa." "I like him too, baby." "Are we going to stay with him forever?" Zara kissed her daughter's forehead. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know that Jake is a good man, and he cares about us. He loves us," Nira said with the certainty of childhood. "And we love him too." As the days passed, the truth of Nira's words became clearer. Jake was no longer just the human who had saved them. He was becoming something more, a partner, a friend, and maybe something even deeper than that. The journey to New Angeles would take several more days, but Zara was no longer worried about what would happen when they arrived. She was beginning to believe that whatever came next, they would face it together. For the first time since her husband's death, Zara allowed herself to hope for a future that included love, as well as survival. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, but it seemed a little less dark when you had people who cared about you by your side. Jake had given her and Nira more than just medical care and transportation. He had given them something she had thought was lost forever, a sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than just trying to survive from day to day. The New Horizon flew through space toward New Angeles, carrying 3 souls who had found in each other the family they had never expected to discover. The medical center on New Angeles was unlike anything Zara had ever seen. Clean white walls stretched high above her head, and soft music played in the waiting areas. Human doctors and nurses moved quietly through the halls, their faces calm and professional. It was so different from the rough frontier medicine she was used to. Jake sat beside her in the comfortable waiting room chairs, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. They had been here for 3 days while the doctors ran tests on Nira. The little girl was in a special treatment room, connected to machines that Zara didn't understand, but that Jake assured her would help. Dr. Lisa Manning, the lead physician, treating Nira, approached them with a smile on her face. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes, and she'd been patient with all of Zara's worried questions. "The treatment is working perfectly," Dr. Manning said, as she sat down across from them. "Nira's cellular regeneration is responding better than we hoped. The damaged tissue is repairing itself, and her energy levels are already improving." Zara felt tears of relief roll down her cheeks. "She's going to be okay?" "More than okay. In 2 weeks, she'll be completely healthy. The treatment will prevent any future episodes, and she should live a perfectly normal life." Jake squeezed Zara's shoulder gently. "That's wonderful news." Dr. Manning looked between them with curiosity. "If you don't mind me asking, how did you two meet? It's unusual to see such a close bond between humans and Villani." Zara and Jake looked at each other. They had been getting that question a lot since arriving on New Angeles. Their relationship was difficult to explain to strangers. Jake bought my contract to help save Nira, Zara said simply. Dr. Manning's eyebrows rose. Bought your contract? It's a long story, Jake said quickly. The important thing is that Nira gets well. Over the following days, while Nira recovered, in the hospital, Jake and Zara spent most of their time together. Jake had rented a small apartment near the medical center, and they took turns staying with Nira and exploring the city. New Angeles was beautiful. The buildings were tall and clean, with gardens on many of the rooftops. The air was fresh and sweet, nothing like the recycled atmosphere of space stations. People of many different species walked the streets together, and no one stared at Zara or treated her differently because she was Villani. Jake showed her the city's museums and parks. He bought her books about human culture and helped her understand the local customs. In return, Zara taught him about Villani traditions and showed him how to prepare traditional foods that Nira loved. They discovered they both enjoyed quiet evenings and old movies. Jake would find classic human films, and Zara would explain similar stories from Villani culture. They would sit together on the apartment's small couch, talking late into the night, while Nira slept peacefully in the bedroom. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the apartment's balcony, Zara realized something had changed between them. Jake was no longer just the kind human who had saved her daughter. He had become someone she looked forward to seeing each morning, someone whose laugh made her feel warm inside. Jake, she said quietly. Yes? What happens when Nira is completely well? Jake was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to happen? Don't know. For so long all I could think about was saving her. I never thought about what would come after. Jake turned to look at her. You're free to make your own choices now. You could stay here on New Angeles, find work, build a new life. The Villani community here is small but welcoming. They would help you get started. What about you? I'll go back to running cargo routes, I suppose. Alone? Jake looked out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the growing darkness. I've been alone for 5 years. I'm used to it. But do you want to be alone? The question hung in the air between them. Zara could see Jake struggling with his answer. I don't know if I'm ready for anything else, he said finally. The next day, Zara visited Nira in the hospital, while Jake took care of some business in the city. The little girl was sitting up in bed, her blue skin glowing with health again. She was drawing pictures with the art supplies the nurses had given her. Look, Mama, Nira said, holding up her drawing. It's our family. Zara looked at the picture. There were 3 figures holding hands, a tall one with brown hair, a medium one with blue skin, and a small one with blue skin. Above them, Nira had drawn a spaceship and stars. That's very beautiful, baby. But we're not really a family. Nira frowned. But Jake loves us, and you love Jake. I can see it. It's not that simple. Why not? Zara sat down on the edge of the hospital bed. How could she explain to a 6-year-old about loss and fear and all the reasons why adults made love complicated? Jake had a family before, she said gently. A wife and a little boy. They died and it made him very sad. But that doesn't mean he can't have a new family, Nira said with the simple logic of childhood. When my toy broke, you got me a new one. It wasn't the same, but I still loved it. People aren't toys, Nira. I know that. But love is love. And Jake has lots of love to give. I can tell. That evening, Jake returned to the apartment with groceries and news from the spaceport. As he prepared dinner, he seemed unusually quiet. Is everything okay? Zara asked. I got a message today. A cargo job that would take me to the outer rim. Good pay, long contract. Zara felt her heart sink. When would you leave? Next week, if I take it. They ate dinner in uncomfortable silence. Afterwards, Jake helped Nira with a puzzle while Zara cleaned the dishes. She watched them together, seeing how gentle Jake was with her daughter, how he listened to her chatter about her day with genuine interest. Later, after Nira had gone to bed, Zara found Jake sitting on the balcony again. Are you going to take the job? She asked. I don't know. It sounds like a good opportunity. It is. Jake rubbed his face tiredly. It's exactly the kind of work I've been doing for years. Simple, straightforward, no complications. No complications, Zara repeated. That's right. Zara sat down beside him. Jake, can I tell you something? Of course, I was married once before Nira was born. His name was Cale, and he was the kindest man I'd ever known. He died in a mining accident when Nira was just a baby. Jake looked at her with surprise. She had never mentioned her husband before. For years I thought I would never love anyone. Again, Zara continued, I thought loving someone new would be betraying his memory, but being with you these past few weeks has shown me something. What's that? Love isn't betrayal. Love is the best way to honor the people we've lost. They would want us to be happy. Jake was quiet for a long time. What are you saying? Zara took his hand in hers. I'm saying that I care about you. More than care about you, and I think you feel the same way about me. Zara, I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But maybe we could be scared together. Jake looked down at their joined hands. What if I can't be what you need? What if I let you down? What if you don't? What if we could build something beautiful together? The next morning, Nira was released from the hospital. The doctors declared her completely cured, and she ran around the apartment with more energy than she'd had in months. Jake watched her with a smile on his face. So, he said to Zara while Nira played with her toys, I turned down that cargo job. Zara felt her heart jump. You did? I realized something. I've been running for 5 years thinking that if I kept moving I could outrun the pain. But pain isn't something you run from. It's something you carry with you until you find a reason to set it down. And have you found a reason? Jake looked at Nira, then at Zara. I think I have, if you'll have me. Zara smiled and kissed him gently. We'll have you. That night, the three of them sat together on the couch, planning their future. They would stay on New Angeles for a while, let Nira get stronger and start school. Jake would modify his ship for family travel, and they would take shorter cargo runs together. It wasn't the life any of them had planned, but it was the life they had chosen, together. 6 months later, Zara stood in front of the mirror in their new home on New Angeles, adjusting the flowing white dress that Jake had chosen for her. It was made in the human style, but decorated with traditional Volani patterns in silver thread. Today was their wedding day. Mama, you look beautiful, Nira said from behind her. The little girl wore a matching dress in soft blue, her skin glowing with perfect health. She had grown taller and stronger over the past months, and her laughter filled their home every day. Thank you, baby, Zara said, kneeling down to hug her daughter. Are you ready to become Jake's daughter officially? Nira nodded eagerly. I've been ready forever. Can I call him Daddy now? You can call him whatever feels right to you. Jake appeared in the doorway wearing a dark blue suit that matched his eyes. He stopped and stared at Zara, his face filled with wonder. You take my breath away, he said softly. Zara felt her cheeks, warm. Even after all these months together, Jake still had the power to make her feel like a young girl again. The wedding ceremony was held in the community center's garden, under the open sky of New Angeles. Friends from many different worlds had come to celebrate with them. Dr. Manning was there, along with several nurses from the hospital who had helped care for Nira. Members of the local Volani community sat beside Jake's fellow cargo pilots and the neighbors who had become like family to them. The ceremony itself was a mixture of human and Volani traditions. They exchanged rings in the human way, promising to love and support each other through all of life's challenges. Then they performed the Volani bonding ritual, touching their foreheads together while speaking ancient words of commitment. In the language of my people, Zara said, looking into Jake's eyes, I promise to share your joys and carry your sorrows. I promise to stand beside you as we face the unknown together. Jake repeated the words as best he could in Volani, his pronunciation bringing gentle laughter from the crowd. Then he spoke his own vows in English. I promise to love you and Nira with everything I have. I promise to build a life with you that honors both of our pasts while embracing our future. I promise to never let fear keep me from showing you how much you mean to me." When they kissed to seal their marriage agreement, the crowd cheered in a dozen different languages. Nira ran up and hugged them both, declaring loudly that she now had the best family in the galaxy. During the celebration that followed, Jake pulled Zara aside for a quiet moment together. "I have something to show you," he said, leading her to where the New Horizon was parked nearby. The ship looked different. Jake had painted new words on the hull in bright letters. "Second chances. I thought our old life together deserved a new name," he explained. Zara smiled and kissed him. "It's perfect." Their new life was everything Zara had never dared to dream of. Jake had changed his business from simple cargo hauling to humanitarian missions. They used the second chances to transport medical supplies to frontier worlds and to help other desperate families like they had once been. Nira thrived in her new environment. She attended the local school with human and alien children, learning about different cultures and making friends from across the galaxy. She was something of a celebrity, as one of the first Vellani children in the human colonies, and she loved teaching her classmates about her mother's traditions. The teachers were amazed by how quickly she learned. Vellani children were naturally intelligent, but Nira seemed especially bright. She mastered mathematics and science with ease, and she had a gift for languages that allowed her to communicate with beings from many different worlds. "I want to be a doctor like Jake when I grow up," she announced one evening over dinner. "But I want to help alien children, because human doctors don't always understand how our bodies work." Jake smiled proudly. "That's a wonderful goal. You'll make an excellent doctor." Their work together had brought them to many worlds and introduced them to many people in need. They had rescued families from failing colonies, delivered medicine to plague-stricken settlements, and helped refugees find new homes in safer places. One day, a message arrived that would change everything. It was from Kepler 7, the mining station where their story had begun. "Jake, you need to see this," Zara called from the communications console. The message was from the Krexan who had been in line with Zara at the labor auction, the one who had warned her about the dangers she faced. His name was Stone, that endures, and his words were simple but urgent. "Kind humans, word of your story is spread among the desperate ones. More families need help. Children are dying while their parents consider selling themselves into slavery. Can you come?" Jake and Zara looked at each other. They had been happy in their comfortable life on New Angeles, but they both knew they couldn't ignore this call for help. "What do you think?" Jake asked. "I think we know what we have to do," Zara replied. They talked with Nira about the decision. She was old enough now to understand the dangers of frontier life, but also old enough to understand the importance of helping others. "Those children need us," Nira said seriously. "We have to go." 2 weeks later, the second chances arrived at Kepler 7. The station looked exactly as Zara remembered it: dirty, crowded, and filled with desperate beings trying to survive. But this time, she wasn't one of the desperate ones. This time, she was there to help. Stone that endures met them at the docking bay. The massive Krexan looked older and more scarred than before, but his eyes lit up when he saw Zara. "Little one," he rumbled in his deep voice, "you have returned, and you look well. Very well indeed." "It's good to see you, Stone," Zara said, using the shortened version of his name that he preferred. Stone looked at Jake with respect. "This is the human who chose love over profit." "This is my husband, Jake," Zara said proudly. Stone nodded approvingly. "Your story has given hope to many, but now there are others who need what you found." He led them through the station to the refugee quarters. In the months since Zara had left, conditions had gotten worse. More families had arrived from failing worlds, and there wasn't enough work or resources for everyone. They met with dozens of desperate parents. Some were considering selling themselves into slavery to feed their children. Others had sick family members who needed expensive treatments. All of them had heard the story of the alien mother who sold herself to save her child, and the human who chose to help instead of exploit. We can't save everyone, Jake said quietly as they returned to their ship that evening. There are too many and we don't have unlimited resources. But we can save some, Zara replied. And maybe our example will inspire others to help too. Over. The next several days they selected families who were in the most desperate need. A Villani father whose twin sons had the same condition Nira had once suffered from. A human woman whose husband had been killed in a mining accident, leaving her alone with 3 children. An elderly Centauri couple who were too old to work but too proud to beg. They loaded these families onto the second chances and transported them to New Angeles, where Dr. Manning and her team were waiting to provide medical care and help them start new lives. The work was hard and sometimes dangerous, but it was also deeply satisfying. Each family they saved was a victory against the cruel indifference of the galaxy. Months passed and their reputation grew. Other pilots began following their example, using their ships to help instead of just to make profit. A network of humanitarian workers spread across the frontier, connected by the simple idea that everyone deserved a chance at a better life. One evening, as they sat together in their ship's observation lounge watching the stars, Nira asked a question that made both Jake and Zara think. "Do you think we're making a real difference?" she asked. Jake considered the question carefully. "We're making a difference to the people we help directly. But more than that, we're showing the galaxy that there's another way to live. That kindness and compassion can be stronger than greed and cruelty. Every person we save goes on to touch other lives," Zara added. "The children we help today will grow up remembering that strangers showed them kindness when they needed it most. Some of them will choose to help others in return." Nira nodded thoughtfully. "So it's like ripples in water. One good action creates more good actions." "Exactly," Jake said, putting his arm around both of them. As they traveled through space toward their next mission, Zara reflected on how much their lives had changed. She had begun this journey as a desperate mother, willing to sacrifice everything for her child. Now she was part of something larger. A family that had chosen to fight against the darkness in the galaxy with acts of love and kindness. The second chances flew on through the stars, carrying its crew toward whatever challenges and opportunities awaited them. Behind them, they left worlds a little brighter and families a little more hopeful. Ahead of them lay the infinite possibility of making the galaxy a better place, one rescued family at a time. In the end, Zara thought, that was what love really meant. Not just caring for those closest to you, but expanding your definition of family to include everyone who needed help. It was a lesson that started with a desperate choice at a labor auction and had grown into something that touched lives across the galaxy. The story of the alien mother who sold herself to save her child.